Now we're at the point that we're ready to start developing the abilities themselves. But before we get into that, it's important to understand a couple of very critical things. The first and eminently most important, next to, of course, trusting yourself, which is the most important, is that it doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. When we're using all the tools and techniques that we're going to use, there's no issue. It doesn't matter how many were correct or how many were wrong, or if your impressions were right or if they were wrong or whatever. None of that matters. That's not what we're here to develop. That, after months of experience, then get into that if you feel like you will need to. But don't waste your time on that now. We're not here to prove you right. We're not here to develop your gift so that you can become the next great sensation. That's your path. That's for you. But what we're here to do is to teach you how to trust yourself, how to build your instincts, how to listen to them. And if you're focusing on how right you are or how wrong you are, it's never going to work. You are going to doom yourself to failure. Because if you're focusing on right and wrong, how do you listen to yourself? Where's trust? How are you developing muscles? All of that is going to fail, and it's going to fail horribly. And you're going to get very discouraged very quickly because you have a very wrong expectation. As I've said before, these are just the basics. They're not in depth. They cover a tremendous amount of things, but there's a lot more out there. If you race to the end, sorry, you fail. Because like in any foot race, if you cut corners and run across the field instead of around it, you get disqualified. It's no different here. If you're so busy focusing on how right you are, how wrong you are, sorry, you get disqualified and you're out of the race. And that's a simple fact. And truth be told, in the beginning, you are going to fail. You are going to fail horribly. Because unless you're one of these really, really lucky few, and there's probably only a relative handful on the entire planet, if your ego's going, oh, I'm one of them, you failed, sorry, you just lost. Because you're not here to learn, you're here to gain power. And I suggest going back to the beginning and starting again, because you missed the point. The thing is that most of us are not going to be successful right out the gate. We're not going to have monster success right from the beginning. We're going to fail, and we're going to fail a lot. And that's the way it's supposed to be. It's like learning to walk. Look at any toddler you know, or anyone you've had access to, and you'll notice when they start walking, they need a lot of support. And when they start doing it on their own, they fall down an awful lot. That's the same with every single skill and ability. We need to gain the understanding, which of course comes through the knowledge and the experience. I'm giving you the knowledge. I can't give you the experience. Only you can do that. And if you skirt on the experience, if you just kind of shove it off and try and jump ahead, you lose. So don't do that. Remember, it's not about success or failure, because you are going to fail. And the more you practice, then the odds are going to be better that you're going to succeed. And realistically, you should give everything at least a month of every day putting in at least 10 minutes a day, if not more, for a solid month before you decide that, no, I don't really have this ability. No, this isn't really working. I should try something else. Because we're all different, as I keep trying to say. And if you're focused on what you think is right instead of what your instincts tell you is right, you're going to doom yourself to failure again. And that's not what I'm here to give you. And so that's why I want to talk about it. So always remember, you're not here to be right. You're here to develop your instincts, to develop your trust, to learn how your body and mind react, and the nuances of how it feels and tastes or looks or whatever. Because your talents are different. They're all different than everybody else. And you might have a ton of overlap that makes it very different from everybody else. So don't get caught up on that. That's so critical. Now, you might be wondering, if you've looked ahead and seen the layout of what's coming, on why I chose to do certain things the way I have. And, well, the reality is I did it for very specific reasons. The next topic and the first ability that we're going to delve into is intuition. Now, I chose that because, as I keep saying, intuition can mirror everything else. Well, just as intuition can mirror everything else, all the tools that we use to develop everything else can also help develop intuition. So it made sense to start with intuition. And I'll talk a lot more about that real soon. But that's why I wanted intuition to be first, because it's the key in a lot of ways. Then I'm going to talk about the sense-based abilities. But what I'm not going to do, when we're talking about the sense-based abilities, I'm not going to include any of the tools and how to develop them. I might give you a very basic overview of a tool to give you an idea of what it's all about, but that's it. And the reason is that in the whole nother series of DVDs or video clips that's really about tools, they're primarily used to develop the first 6 talents, the intuition and the 5 primary senses. They can be used in other ways, but those are the biggest use of those tools for the most part. And if I were to include the tools and techniques with each of the sensibilities, for example, we'd be having the same conversation 5 times with each of the abilities. And that's not very entertaining for me, and that's going to be very repetitive and boring for you. So that's why I decided not to do that. The information on how to develop the ability is going to be there in tremendous detail, just without the overlap. So instead of talking about how playing cards can be used to develop clairvoyance and then talking about playing cards to develop clairaudience, I'm going to show you here's what you do with playing cards, and then show you it can be used to develop clairvoyance with this, clairaudience with this, whatever with that, so that it's one piece of information to relate to it all. It's just a better way to go. So I wanted you to know that, so you don't just feel like you're getting, not disappointed that it's not there yet. And also because I don't want you to skip ahead. Like, if you look at it, well, I'm a clairvoyant, I'm going to develop my clairvoyance, and just watch clairvoyance and then skip to playing cards, you're going to miss out, because again, you don't really know that you are. You might think you are. And remember what I said about that. Thinking you are, or thinking you know, is the worst place in the universe to be, because thinking you know or thinking you are doesn't give you any room to knowing you are, or knowing anything really. So don't get caught up on that. Don't lose yourself in that. So that's really what I wanted to say, is that that's the order, that's the structure. Don't get caught up on right and wrong. It doesn't help you at all. Even a year from now, I probably wouldn't worry about how many right or wrong you are. It doesn't matter. That's an ego trip. Don't go there. It will prevent you from developing abilities. And look at it. That's the tool that professionals are using. And how many of them don't have a clue what they're doing, or have the ability to back it up, that can't do a clinical trial and prove it? There's a perfect example for that. Look at what they're doing, because they're totally focused on right and wrong. Well, how come they can't succeed when it comes time to proving? It's because they're not. They're losing sight. They're lost touch with their true abilities, with themselves for that matter, in favor of their ego, their reputation. I just don't want to see you do that. I want to see you succeed, and that's not how you succeed. That's how you guaranteed fail. So give you something to think about, hopefully. So now to the abilities themselves. Hope you're ready. If you're not, take a moment, go back and review the things that you think you need more of, because there's no point racing this. Remember, slow and steady is the way to win the race. Always has been, always will be. Anything else, you're just doing it for the wrong reasons then, because it's too much about right and wrong, success or failure. It's a guarantee. So think about that. See you soon.